Hey guys, welcome back to Honkai Star Rail. In today's video, we are taking a look at Luocha and going to do a basic guide on him. Now, keep in mind, it is still early days, so if someone finds out some big brain strategy that we haven't thought of, I will update you guys in the future, but this should get you pointed in the right direction. I'm going to try and make this pretty quick and concise to get all the information across. We're going to look at his skills, his light cones, his traces, his relics, looking at more of a free-to-play side, so we'll touch on Eidolons, but not too deep, and then we will also look at his playstyle and some optimizations or mistakes you want to avoid to maintain his field at a higher uptime. So let's get into it. So first of all, he is an imaginary abundance unit. His basic attack, like all basic attacks, is just going to deal damage. As we move on to his skill, and for his skill, his ultimate, and his talent, we're going to look at their numbers based on level 8. So for his skill, he's going to heal a single ally for 56% of his attack plus 710. And this is going to grant him 1 stack of Abyss Flower. Now, with a trace, this will also cleanse 1 debuff off the ally. Now, it also has a passive portion that when an ally's health falls below 50%, he will trigger this skill on that ally and heal them, basically functioning as this skill, but it doesn't consume a skill point or anything like that. It's like a free passive heal. However, this does have a 2-turn cooldown. Next is his ultimate. Now, this one is relatively cheap at a 100 energy cost. It's going to deal AoE damage equal to 180% of his attack to all enemies and remove 1 buff from each of them. And it will also grant him a stack of Abyss Flower. Next up, we have his talent, or passive, if you will. Now, we mentioned in both the skill and ultimate that they give him stacks of Abyss Flower. Now, what his talent does is once you reach 2 stacks of that Abyss Flower, it will consume them and deploy a field on the battlefield, which when an ally attacks an enemy inside that field, and the field lasts for 2 turns, the ally will heal themselves for 16.8% of Luocha's attack plus 213. Then there is also a trace on top of that, which will also heal other allies besides themselves for 7% of Luocha's attack plus 93. And finally, we have his technique. Now, once you use his technique, when you enter the next battle, he will activate his talent and deploy the field at the start of battle. Now, I wanted to jump into some tips around his playstyle to maximize the uptime of his field. Now, the first thing is when we look at his Abyss Flower stacks, he consumes them to put the field up. So once he puts the field up, he is at 0 stacks, and he cannot gain stacks while that field is up. You'll see it indicated by his little portrait that will have the icon lit up, but it won't have stacks anymore next to it, and it cannot gain those stacks until the field goes away. Now, this means you ideally, unless it's a tricky situation where you need to use his ultimate, you want to save his ultimate even if you're at full gauge until the field dissipates, so that once it dissipates, you can gain yourself a stack. However, there's one other thing. When testing in auto, I discovered that if he's using the turn that's going to be his last turn of the field, in this example, I use a basic attack on auto, but then the AI gets the energy from that auto attack and queues up the ultimate before the auto attack is finished. This means the field is still up for that ultimate, and as soon as his ultimate is over, it ends his basic attack phase and loses the field. However, he doesn't gain a stack of Abyss Flower from that ultimate. So being patient and not spamming clicks is going to be the way to go. When we look at light cones, his signature 5-star light cone Echoes of the Coffin is going to be great, providing him some extra attack, which is going to give him damage, but also increase his healing, extra energy regeneration, and also speed for allies. However, if you're looking towards free-to-play options, the free-to-play 4-star Abundance Light Cone is fantastic, quid pro quo, which is going to provide your team with some extra energy. And then we also have the 3-star option of Multiplication, which is great because every time he uses his basic attack, it will advance his action forward. And due to the way his kit works with a lot of passive healing, he should be using a lot of basic attacks, meaning this will help him generate extra skill points throughout the battle. Now that we look at relics for the 4-piece sets, there's 2 main ones that I look to, one being a Passerby of Wandering Clouds for the healing increase, and the other one being a Musketeer of Wildweight because it gives him attack, which increases his healing, and also speed, which is always nice. Now you can do a 4-piece of either, or a 2 and 2 if you have better stats. Then when we look to the main stats on the pieces, for the body, you can look to attack, but me personally, I much prefer outgoing healing boost. It's just going to give a really nice chunky increase to that healing that he provides. As for the feat, depending on the situation, the type of player you are, and the substats you have, you can look to either attack or speed. Then when we look at the planner ornaments, there's two main options for me. We got Fleet of the Ageless, which is great for a supportive one, increasing the damage that his allies deal with their attack increase. And then we also have Space Healing Station, which is going to increase his attack further, giving him a greater healing potential and a bit of extra damage. As for main stats, for the rope, energy regeneration is always a priority for me. However, you can also choose to opt for attack on this one. And for the sphere, we're going to look towards attack percent again, because once again, it's going to increase that healing capacity. Now, with these recommendations, you'll notice that I never mentioned HP or defense. Ideally, you try and get those through substats, but if you are struggling for survivability, don't be afraid to drop some of the attack slots in this gear for some defense or HP. It's a bit of a balance and there's no one right answer, but ideally you do want him to survive as well. So if you are struggling really bad for survivability, then you may want to shift him to some more defense or HP options. As we look to his traces, the additional stats he's going to gain are attack, defense, and HP. Now, the attack is obviously great because we're trying to prioritize increasing his healing, but like I mentioned in Relics, if you are struggling for survivability, it's really nice to pick up those HP and defense traces to just help him survive a bit better. As for the additional skills he gets through traces, they're all fantastic. Pick them all up. A cleanse on his skill, great effect. Allies, whenever they attack an enemy in the field, healing their other allies, also fantastic. Getting a massive resistance to control effects is great because you don't want your healer being controlled. So pick all those up. As we look to the abilities and which ones you want to upgrade, your priority is pretty much going to be his talent or passive and his skill, because those two are the ones that provide healing and you want to increase the healing that they provide. If you just want to go all in on him and you love him and you want him to deal a bit of extra damage as well, then you can look to his basic attack and his ultimate, but they are only providing damage increases. So if you're limited on resources, I would stick to the skill and the talent. As we look to his Eidolons, they're all great, but none are 100% necessary. So getting one copy of him if you are free to play is going to be perfectly fine. At level 1, he's going to give an attack increase to his allies of 20% whilst his field is active. Then as we get to number 2, his skill is going to have increased healing on allies below 50% and provide a shield if they're above 50%. Then at level 4, he's going to, when the field is active, he's going to weaken the enemies and it's going to cause them to deal 12% less damage. And then at 6, when he uses his ultimate, he's got a 100% fixed chance to reduce all enemies all type resistance by 20% for 2 turns, which is going to give a pretty decent damage amplification. As we look to teams for Luocha, being only the 3rd healer in the game, he's going to be pretty splashable and usable in most teams. One synergy that seems really strong with him is going to be that of Clara, due to the way Clara is going to use her revenge attacks, which will then proc the field and heal herself and her teammates once we include the trace. But in general, as a 2nd healer, if you don't have a Bailu, he's going to be very splashable because he is your 2nd healer. So that is going to be it for our newest imaginary abundance character, Luocha. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have an awesome day and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.